Okay, Joe Bob Briggs still here, and that's a great ending to a great movie, especially when Randy Quaid breaks down in tears and says, "Please help me." Not the way you expect a Frankenstein movie to end. As I said before, I think that is the best Frankenstein ever done. Did we get any awards for that movie?
I don't know.
Phil, did we get awards for that movie? You don't know. We should have won some awards for that movie. All right, next week I want to remind you that our first feature will be Sleep Stalker, the 1985 attempt to create a new Freddy Krueger monster called the Sandman, about this serial killer who gets executed, but then he comes back as some kind of sand creature who can sneak around through air conditioning ducts and kill his victims. Didn't really catch on. And then Joe Bob's last call next week is the Philadelphia Experiment 2, yet another of those time travel movies that make my head hurt because I can never figure out what's going on in them. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we're celebrating Labor Day weekend next week with toilet time. We're just going right down there in the old dumper. How did this happen on Labor Day weekend? I don't know. Anyway, the weekend will be half over. Most of you will be drunk. You won't even notice. But right now, we're going to watch The Nutty Professor. The original Nutty Professor, the one that Jerry Lewis wrote, directed, starred in, the one that Eddie Murphy based his hit movie on. And, of course, the original inspiration for it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, one of the timeless horror concepts done here for pure comedy. This movie features the original song, "We've Got a World That Swings." Somehow I don't think that one charted in 1963. I could be wrong, but I don't think it was on the charts. Also starring the beautiful Stella Stevens as the love interest, and of course featuring plenty of the physical shtick that made Jerry beloved by French film critics as the auteur that he is. Jerry is a nerdy professor by day who gets beat up by his own students, but thanks to his secret formula, he's one jazzed, swinging dude by night, talking tough to the chicks, telling them to wipe that lipstick off before they slide across that seat and be nice to Papa, you know? This was pretty much at the height of Jerry's directing career, and Paramount Pictures would let him do whatever he wanted, and so it's interesting to see these long, talky scenes that he does that you would never see in a movie today, but he gets away with it because, well, for one thing, because it's comedy, and it is funny. It's not as funny as it probably was in 1963, but you be the judge about that, and we'll breeze our way through this movie that's become a favorite of a lot of young comedians. Eddie Murphy's one of those young comedians, The Nutty Professor. Les Brown and his band of renown is in this movie. 1963, probably the last year you could put Les Brown and his band of renown in a movie and have anybody take you seriously. Because wasn't that the year the Beatles landed, 63? Is that the year the Beatles got here? And then after that, all these musicians are walking around going, "What happened to my career? I had a career." Dazed expressions on their faces. What? They didn't want to book Les Brown and his band of renown? What happened?
Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and The Nutty Professor on TNT.
All right, The Nutty Professor, which many believe to be Jerry Lewis's best movie. Jerry Lewis was the Jim Carrey of his day. Or maybe Jim Carrey is the Jerry Lewis of his day. I don't know. But both guys had the same problems and a lot of the same techniques. For example, a lot of the critics thought that Jerry was just plain stupid, juvenile, and simple-minded and sappy, and many of the producers and business people in Hollywood didn't give him all that much respect, but his pictures made so much money that they pretty much let him do whatever he wanted, just like Jim Carrey. Another similarity is that they both took things that were originally only seen in cartoons, and they did it in live action, like in the sequence we just saw where Jerry is flattened by the door. That's the first shot of him in the movie. He's tapping on that door that Kathleen Freeman is standing on, so that she'll open it and he can start that mumbling and thing that he does and extricate himself from the door. He was famous for that under-your-breath, double-talk gibberish stuff, described by one critic as babbling Neanderthal blather. But everything he did was done like a cartoon. He's totally unhurt by having the door flatten him. He's totally unhurt by being rammed into a tiny shelf by the oafish football player. But the problem with Jerry is he was too outspoken for his own good, because when he was making The Nutty Professor, he gave all these interviews where he compared himself to John Barrymore and Frederick March, because they both did versions of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, so now Jerry was going to give the world his version. He'd say something like that and everyone would go, Jerry, please, okay? Anyway, let's watch some more of the movie, which half the world calls silly, sentimental slapstick, and the other half calls cinematic genius. So back to the flick. Jerry actually learned all that cartoon stuff from Frank Tashlin, a great director who directed all Jerry's films and some of the Martin and Lewis films up to a certain year. But Frank was not acclaimed in Europe with the same enthusiasm. Of course, Frank couldn't do the spastic dance either. So, you know, if there's one thing I don't like about this movie, not enough spastic dancing in it.
Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and the Nutty Professor on TNT.
One gag that always makes me laugh is the watch that plays the Battle Hymn of the Republic when he opens it. I think that'll be funny 50 years from now. That'll always be funny. But the scenes like when he goes to the bowling alley without his glasses and he throws the ball the wrong way and he knocks over 10 guys, or like the scene where he drops the weights and his arms stretch out until they're 7 feet long, this is where the critics disagreed. Some people just think that stuff is not funny. But when you read about how the French critics love him so much, those are the scenes they're talking about. It's the long arm scene, it's the bowling alley scene, those fantasy things, you know. That's what they consider pure comedy genius. All right, here we go. Now, this is the part of the movie that Jerry kept secret. When people visited the set of the Nutty Professor, he had them searched for cameras so that nobody would know what he looked like after the transformation scene. He gave an interview where he said, "For suspense, I am giving the film the same treatment that Hitchcock did with Psycho. Nobody, I don't care who he is, will be seated after the picture starts," so that he could keep this transformation a secret. Okay, coming up, the big surprise. I'm not going to give it away either because Jerry might not like it.
Call and the Nutty Professor on TNT.
Well, whatever you think of Buddy Love, I want one of those suits. Whoa! Electric blue sharkskin suit with black lapels and a pink shirt. Don't you just love the 60s? Buddy Love is obviously a very nasty guy on the inside who should not be singing black magic in public, by the way. And since he has his hair slicked back and he's a nightclub singer and he likes to hang around the bar insulting the bartender and ordering stuff like Alaskan polar bears, many people have suggested that this is Jerry's version of Dean Martin. Of course, Jerry and Dean weren't talking in 1963. I think they continued not talking for another 20, 25 years after that. But of course, Buddy Love could be any member of the Rat Pack. It could be Frank Sinatra, it could be Peter Lawford, it could be a combination of all of them. And Jerry and everybody associated with the movie says that no, the character was not based on anybody, but it had to be based on something, right? And Jerry had grown up around nightclubs, he'd played clubs all over the country, so he'd seen the type. But what's hard for me to believe is that Stella Stevens wants to leave with him. But anyway, that was the big secret, that the monster in Jerry Lewis's version of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was this cool hep cat in a $1,000 suit. So let us continue. Did anybody write that down, by the way, the recipe for the Alaskan polar bear? Because that actually sounded good to me. Yeah. Permanent brain damage, but good.
Back to Joe Bob's Last Call and the Nutty Professor on TNT.
And that's another famous sequence where the nerdy professor fantasizes about Stella wearing all those different outfits. Stella Stevens, who is still a knockout today, by the way, still doing sexy parts in low-budget films, says that Nutty Professor fans come up to her all the time and they tell her how much they like that scene where she wears the evening gown and the tennis outfit and the hot red dress and the swimsuit. And she says it was something they just shot really fast. They just shot it as fast as she could change costumes, and she never even thought about it that much until later. But it shows you how men think. They like to fantasize about women wearing different things. So a French critic would say, how brilliant, Jerry has once again used the film to penetrate into the subconscious. And an American critic would say, nice cheesecake, Jerry. Anyway, this was Stella Stevens' biggest movie. She was this girl from Yazoo City, Mississippi, named Estelle Egglestone, who was discovered doing a student play at Memphis State University. She was doing Bus Stop and was brought out to Hollywood as a contract player at Fox. She was in The Courtship of Eddie's Father. She did this movie, did a couple of other movies. Then she was a Playboy centerfold. And she blames Playboy for ruining her image and turning her into a sex symbol who couldn't get any serious roles. Of course, it wasn't that bad because she's remained a sex symbol and she still occasionally does sex scenes in low-budget movies, which means she's been a sex symbol in 5 decades. Whoa. Nobody lasts that long. That's amazing. Anyway, after this movie, she didn't speak to Jerry Lewis again for 32 years. And not because they were mad at each other or anything, but she made a couple movies with Dean Martin, and I guess you had to be friends with either one or the other, and so she didn't see Jerry again until 1995 when he was doing Damn Yankees on Broadway, and she went backstage and they had a little Nutty Professor reunion, so isn't that sweet? Back to the flick. Andrew Stevens, Stella's son, is one of the better low-budget directors and producers working today. He all those Shannon Tweed flicks, Andrew Stevens, and he usually puts his mom in his movies. You know, that's got to be weird though, calling your mom up on the phone and saying, "Mom, I really think you should do nudity in this one. I'll give you an extra $500." You know?
On TNT.
All right, while Julius Kelp and Buddy Love fight for supremacy within the body of Jerry Lewis, we're going to take just a moment right here for our weekly feature called Joe Bob's Jailbreak. And to help us out is the fabulous substitute TNT mail girl, Kathy. Welcome back, hon. I see you ran out of material when you were putting on that uniform.
Oh, very funny.
You know, I don't understand why Stella Stevens is so crazy about Buddy Love in this movie. Like, what if I said to you, "All right, sweet cheeks, wipe off the lipstick and scoot over here and plant one on me. Come on, make it snappy, babe."
You're asking me a question.
Let's make some mouth music, baby.
You want me to respond to that?
Let's just get down on the floor and eat face.
Are you finished?
This is not working, is it?
No, it's not. It's not.
Well, here's my point. Haven't you ever met some guy who was so confident that he just swept you off your feet and you would do anything he said?
Anything?
Anything he wanted you to do?
Yeah.
I didn't want to know that. Why did you say that? You mean there are guys like that actually works?
If you didn't want to know, then why did you ask me?
That is depressing. Here, give me the letter. That's all I need. Real life Buddy Love guys.
This is from Gregory Thompson from the Oklahoma State Penitentiary in McAlester, Oklahoma.
Okay. Joe Bob. Yo. I'm just going to give it to you straight, man. I'm locked up, as you can obviously see, and as you can imagine, the programming in the joint ain't too much of nothing. In fact, the only movie station we got is TNT, so you know I, as well as everybody else around here, check out Monstervision. I guess we've been the subject of punishment for so long, we decided to punish ourselves. Now, just like everybody else, we enjoy a nice spook movie every now and then. But come on, man, you're showing Godzilla. What's up with that, Joe Bob? Frankly, the only good movie you've shown is Night of the Living Dead. You know that's true. Now, you seem like a good old boy, so I know you wouldn't mind doing about 2,000 convicts a favor and show the movies I've listed. And then he lists on here, It, Needful Things, Don't Look in the Basement, Nightmare on Elm Street, Phantasm, The Car, Exorcist, Vamp, Gator, Blackula. Anyway, I know you'll do the right thing by hooking us up, because it takes a pretty low-down guy to turn his back on so many. So holler at old Ted and get these movies. I'll scream at you later. See ya, Gregory Thompson, number 194261, McAlester, Oklahoma. These guys at McAlester, now they're using guilt on me. We get so many letters from McAlester, Oklahoma. But McAlester, it's maximum security prison, 130 guys on death row. Most popular recreational activities, weight room and basketball. So, serious prison. Only about 250 of the inmates have actual jobs. The best job, their favorite job, is making 3-ring binders and diploma covers in the prison bindery. Remember, guys, we love a captive audience. free your mind, and your butt will follow, and we appreciate your spending that hard-earned bindery money on TNT. Who was the guy?
What?
Who was the guy that you got out of control with? I got to know that.
I'm going to tell you that.
You're the kind of girl that would probably do it with Jerry Lewis, right? As Buddy Love.
What is that supposed to mean?
I don't know. It's late. I'm grumpy. Back to the movie.
No, what does that mean? Tell me what that means.
I don't know what it means. I heard you were a Jerry Lewis fan. That's all it means.
Oh, well, he's a genius.
See? See, that's what I mean.
The Professor on TNT.
Did anybody notice that Henry Gibson is in this film? Long before he became famous on Laugh-In, he's playing a more or less straight role as one of the college students. They filmed the exteriors of this, by the way, at Arizona State University. So some of those students you see are actual students. But why talk about that when Les Brown and his band of renown has those horns ready and it's time to cook, man? So roll it. I did a concert at Arizona State one time. Serious party people there. Major fun going on at that place. I almost died there. And that was the legal stuff going on.
Professor on TNT.
He did the spastic dance. I was waiting for the spastic dance, and he did it. All right. To the refrains of Les Brown and his band of renown. Very cool. You know one other explanation for who Buddy Love might be based on? Maybe it's not Dean Martin at all. Maybe there's the fun and wild and crazy Jerry, and then there's the MDA Telethon serious filmmaker Jerry. You know, maybe Buddy Love is the dark underbelly of Wacky Jerry. So, because 20 years after this movie, Jerry Lewis made The King of Comedy for Martin Scorsese, where he played a famous late-night comedian. He's being stalked by Robert De Niro, and that is absolutely chilling. That's like Buddy Love to the 100th power. It makes your skin crawl. Good Jerry, evil Jerry. But, of course, we know which Jerry is going to win at the end of this movie, right? Because it was 1963. Comedies had to end in a certain way. So, as you'll see in the conclusion of The Nutty Professor, it's the conventional way. In 1971, though, Jerry made his first tour of Paris. 16 sold-out shows at the Olympia Theater. That stuff they say about France loving Jerry, that's no lie. And that's about the time Jerry decided to publish his book on the art of filmmaking, or as we in the business like to call it, l'art du cinéma Jerry. If we don't like who we are, how can we expect anybody else to like us? That's it. That's the whole message of the movie. That's what we waited for. See, this is where you just want to go, yuckola. But he gets the girl anyway because she sees his wonderful inner self, secure in the knowledge that he will never again sing black magic in public. And so ends the classic, The Nutty Professor. Okay, that's it for tonight. Next week, our double feature is Sleep Stalker, followed by Philadelphia Experiment 2. So you might want to surf over to USA next week. Only kidding. But you can stick a fork in me. I'm totally done. And did you guys hear the one about the farmer who had 3 daughters? No. Well, he tended to be a little overprotective. So whenever a guy came to take his daughters on a date, he'd greet them with a shotgun to make sure they knew who was boss. So one evening, all 3 daughters are going out on dates. So the doorbell rings, and the farmer gets his shotgun, and he answers the door, and the guy at the door says, "Hi, I'm Joe. I'm here for Flo. We're going to the show. Is she ready to go?" Well, the farmer really didn't care much for the poetry, but, you know, he let him go out on the date. So the doorbell rings again. Farmer gets his shotgun, answers the door. Second guy says, "Hi, I'm Eddie. I'm here for Betty. We're getting spaghetti. Is she ready?" And the farmer frowns again, but he decides, let him go out on the date. So the doorbell rings again. Farmer gets his shotgun, answers the door. The third guy says, "Hi, I'm Chuck." The farmer shoots him. Joe Bob Briggs reminding you that the drive-in will never die.
Back to